And welcome everyone. This is a Green Review's working group meeting. Um, as a part of the CNCF, the Code of Conduct applies, which is essentially to all be respectful towards one another. And I'd like to welcome any new members. We have one new member, or two actually, two. If you'd like to say hi, unmute and say hi, and that you're welcome to do that now.
Hi, I'm Brian. I'm a newcomer. I found out about the tag during KubeCon in Chicago. Had a great time, learned a lot, and super interested to learn more and help out any way I can.
Hello, I'm Matea. I also learned about this from KubeCon, and I was at the general meeting for the tag last week, and yeah, looking forward to helping out.
Nice, welcome. So there's the charter. If you'd like to start somewhere, that you can read through, and I'll share the meeting notes in case you haven't. I can never find the chat when I'm sharing. Sorry. There's everything that you need to find, you can find through this. If you haven't joined the Slack channel yet on the CNCF Slack, you're welcome to join that. We have the design doc where we try to surface all the information from discussions, GitHub issues, etc. And we have a board where we have our issues. And with that, let's get going with one announcement, that Christina is moving from co-chair to tech lead, since this is more fitting and more it aligns more with what Christina would like to do and contribute to. So Christina, it's great to have you in the project and the team, and yeah, it's just the title change that fits better. I don't know if you'd like to say something at this point.
No, that's fine, Nikki. Thank you. I think we mentioned that during the project meeting. I think that's enough, more than enough information. But thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
Oh, lovely. So the first thing that I wanted to mention, we don't have a Falco maintainer in the meeting today. We are waiting on the Falco team to create a green review repo in their org. This is also because it will be easier for them to add any manifests that they need to add, anything like that, to a repo under their own org. So we're waiting for them to do that. Until then, we do need to do a workaround for deploying Falco, if we have time between now and mid-December to do that. Yeah, that's one update from Melissa that I had when we discussed this at KubeCon that I wanted to share with you. And I left a comment in one of the issues that was related to that, so it's all tracked. And lastly, we might have someone from the K6 team join us at past. But without further ado, let's get started with looking at our issues. I think Ross, you wanted to discuss the tooling. Would you like to? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
I just not unmute myself. Yes, we'd definitely like to discuss the tooling. Also maybe as well for the new joiners as well to add some context as well. I can just say that we're using Equinix for the cluster. And the main reason for that is for Kepler, because we want to use Kepler with the RAPL monitoring to measure energy consumption. And that just works, well, that works better on bare metal because we have access to the RAPL metrics, whereas in the cloud it's usually blocked. And nicely Equinix donate the hardware which we're using. And so far what we did is I created some docs and we created a cluster manually using Cluster API. And we installed Kepler there to make sure everything was working there and that looks okay. For the manual cluster, probably the next step would be to install Falco and probably Prometheus and do some tests. But we also want to have the cluster managed in kind of a GitOps manner. And that's the kind of investigation that I've been doing that I'd like to discuss here. So taking a step back with Cluster API, that was our kind of preferred route and the way we wanted to go. The issue is because we haven't got a management cluster, we could run like a single node management cluster and install the controllers there. But we kind of feel that's a bit wasteful because we're using an extra node there. And also we still need to manage that node so it doesn't really solve the problem as well. So what we're looking at is using an infrastructure as code tool to manage the cluster. And we've looked at a couple of options, but I think OpenTofu looks promising. And I did a kind of spike there to investigate. So they have a GitHub action that we can run, and we can use the Equinix and Terraform provider with that. So that was the kind of proposal was to go that route. We do need something for state management there. So it looks like we can use an S3 bucket or some kind of S3 storage and to store the state. But yeah, that would be the first, just to get other people's thoughts on that, if we're going to think that's kind of an approach. But yeah, from the kind of investigation so far, that's looking promising. Nikki, maybe if you could show the code there, because there's probably two files that are interesting. The first one will be the action itself. Yes, and so what's quite nice is that there's an OpenTofu action that will handle installing the CLI and that we can use. That's set up OpenTofu. And then we just kind of run, well, similar kind of to a Terraform thing. We would run tofu init, tofu plan, tofu apply. So yeah, we can provision there, and then in the main.tf, there's the resources that the cluster nodes that we create. And yes, we do need the state there. We could, Leo, we can see if we can use the Equinix storage. I wasn't sure. It looked like the Equinix part wasn't part of Equinix Metal. It was a different kind of part of Equinix, and it wasn't available in all regions. But maybe we can open an issue in the cluster repo to find that out. But AWS does look an option as well, and I think that might be simpler, just because we would just need a bucket just for the storage there.
So Leo is asking if it's possible to run everything in one region. And
yes.
Through Equinix.
Yes, we're running everything in a single region. And there's a variable for Metro. Metro is kind of what they call region. And so for a start, I selected kind of Paris because I had kind of a wide variety of instances, and also the carbon intensity should be quite low there. But yeah, we can run everything in a single kind of metro in the terminology. It would just be, if we can use an object storage, we would need to use a region that has that. So we might need to change region, which is doable. I just wasn't sure if we had access to that because it's not part of Equinix Metal itself. But yes, so in terms of the resources we have with the control plane node, then we have the worker nodes as well. I can also take an action to see if we can use Anther object storage. I agree it would be good to use a single provider if we can. I just wasn't clear from when I looked so far whether that's possible, but I can take an action to look into that. Yes, in terms of we run the test as well. I think so far we're thinking that the test would also run within the cluster. So in terms of Falco, which is the project we're looking at first, we need to generate some load there. And we're looking at using the Google microservices demo to install that as an example workload. And then it has some load testing. So the actual load generation would be part of the cluster itself. But I think also how we actually run those tests in the synthetic load is something that we're still figuring out. And hopefully, with the discussion about K6 in the second part of the meeting, we can see, whether we can use K6 there. And yes, so far we looked at the Google microservices demo, because that seemed like an example workload that you just deploy and has some kind of load generation capacity. Yes, when Nikki looked as well, it looks like AWS creates an option as well. So that's why I was thinking if we can use AWS there. That was in the service desk docs. Let me see if I can find that.
Yeah, there is some limited credit. I imagine we would be using very little for what we need.
Yes, it's just the bucket that we need. I'll put that in chat. Yes. So I think there's a limit that they mentioned in the docs, which is like $3,000 a month, and yeah, we shouldn't be anywhere near that. We just need a bucket just to have the object storage there.
Leo, do you think we could issue a service desk ticket? Just if it keeps things easier to go that way, and we would not be using much of the credit.
Maybe I can come off mute. Maybe it's easier. So of course we can open a service desk ticket, but I think it would be good to first check with Equinix if their offering really is not good enough for us, because right now we have it all run on Equinix. I think it works quite well. So the bare metal stuff. So I would first evaluate, okay, do they have like a storage option? And I think like on their website, at least there's like something listed. And if this does not work for us, I would consider then going with Oracle or AWS. So the ticket part, like this is not a problem. We can just open up a ticket. We can get it done, hopefully like in a week or less. But I would not open up a ticket if we don't go this route.
Yes, I can ask Equinix, as a first case, and then if that doesn't work out, then we can maybe look at AWS. But yeah, I can look a bit further then and see if Equinix is an option, because it would be nice to have a single provider if we can. Yes, I'm not sure, Brian, I'm not sure if free tier is an option. I think it's going to be kind of a few dollars, I would expect, because it's just a bucket, with the storage. So I think we can check Equinix first, and then if Equinix doesn't work out, then maybe we can use existing AWS credits there. But yeah, taking a step back onto the tooling, so OpenTofu with the Equinix provider looks kind of promising, but then we still need to provision Kubernetes itself. And there was a discussion I had last week with William and with Bianca. We were looking at maybe whether we can use K3S there. with the benefits so that some of the provisioning is a bit easier when we have the OpenTofu code. And it's also because it's a smaller distribution, it should also have lower energy consumption for the cluster. I put in the design doc as well, just to kind of highlight it. I don't think it blocks us with this with deploying CNCF projects on there. I'm not kind of aware of any restrictions because it's implementing the Kubernetes API. But if there are, then that'd be something to consider. But it does look with K3S, we would have that kind of lighter distribution and also simpler provisioning steps when we're creating the Equinix nodes. So yes, from looking at it so far, that kind of combination of OpenTofu with K3S, that's the part that I think that's looking promising. And Dibanka was saying he was happy to look at the K3S part because he's worked with that before. Yes, but Brenda, if you want to unmute, that's totally fine. That'll be helpful.
Great, thanks. I didn't want to talk over anybody. Yeah, I'm thinking more about when you say, you stick to a GitOps approach and wanting to automate as much as possible. Obviously, that is we should try to do. The more I think about the tooling there in that space, the heavier it seems, right? Like in terms of how much energy consumption would be used. So it's this interesting balance we'd have to strike between not installing too much software to try to get that full level of automation in place, the GitOps approach, and perhaps maybe sacrificing some of that stuff to do some things more manually. But yeah, I don't know if we've thought that far ahead yet.
Yes, we kind of thought, well, that was kind of the reasons why we did kind of go the cluster API route, because kind of having an extra node as a management cluster, that feels pretty wasteful there. What I was doing when I was investigating, we can run the OpenTofu within a GitHub action, so we wouldn't actually have any kind of the provisioning steps will run within GitHub actions. And we would just do that on a merge to see if there's any changes. So that should work with the automation. We created the cluster manually just to kind of verify the installation. My concern would just be doing upgrades because I used a kind cluster as the management cluster with a cluster API. When we're doing upgrades, we would need to see how we would do that.
I see.
Whereas this route's a bit more complex, but it would give us kind of that upgrade option as well.
Okay, so the GitHub action then would also provision the cluster, but also run the load test itself, or would that be a separate?
Yes, that would be part of the pipeline which we're designing as well. So what we're thinking is using infrastructure as code to manage the cluster, and then have Flux for the components that we need to run, like Kepler. But then we would have a pipeline that would actually be running the tests, and we've been looking at maybe running a GitHub Actions runner in there. So, for example, in the case of Falco, we would install Falco, or we would install the static load, and then we would capture the metrics and we run in a pipeline. But yes, it would just be actual running of the tests will be handled by that pipeline rather than the infrastructure as code part.
Got it. Thank you. Put myself back on mute.
It sounds like S3 might be the best, the way forward.
Yes, it's because I think we wouldn't, need to use many credits there. It would just be to have that bucket just for the state.
About S3, so what are we storing in S3? Is it the state of OpenTofu?
Yes, yes, that's where the bucket's configured, and we're just using it to store the state there.
Okay. Probably we will need S3 at some point anyways, or some sort of object storage for artifacts or something like this.
And I guess it's good to establish access for the Green Reviews project to have access to the AWS credits in case we need it now rather than later. Just to have a
So AWS also,
options.
yeah, makes sense. AWS also has like some bare metal options, I think. I have not used them, so I'm not too sure, but like, would it be an option to move entirely to AWS in this case?
We might use too much of the credits if we do that, whereas
Okay. Depends on the credits.
Unless there's a newer offering that I'm not aware of too, they're bare metal. It's like their whole machine. There's still a layer there. So like we might not have access to IPMI and other things that we want for future projects.
Okay. All right. Okay, then let's open up a ticket and get access to AWS.
sounds good. Maybe Leo, we can pair because I haven't opened a ticket on service desk.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a Jira thing, so it's not special. But the tech chairs have access to the service desk.
Okay.
I can show you. But it's not very exciting.
I guess I don't have access in that case.
No, but I can just share the screen and show it to you. So there's like so on the service desk, there's basically like you need, for example, legal advice for your project or for your team. Maybe you need like artworks. So the CNCF and Linux Foundation have like themes in these areas, and depending like on like the need on what you need help with. Also, for example, like security audits, things like this, you can open up tickets. The most common one is let's add a calendar invite. But we can also use the service desk to get access to Equinix or whatever.
Nice. This is good to know. Thanks. I had no idea what the service desk was used for, except for the calendar. I guess so. This is, we've covered this enough, I believe. Ross, do you think that we should?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I think we've kind of covered it. If anyone has feedback on the tooling, we've got the issue as well there. But yeah, I think this kind of combination of using OpenTofu with K3S, looks promising. So I'd like to continue exploring that.
Thank you, Ross. This is great. Is there another issue, Ross, that you'd like to go over from here?
I think there's also the Flux issue as well. For the GitOps part, it might be worth just covering that as well. Because also we had some discussions a bit about how the directory structure would look in there. Yeah, I think it might be useful just to cover that one as well, because once we've kind of bootstrapped the cluster, we'll want to bootstrap Flux as well, and then we'll use Flux then for installing the rest of the components. Yeah, so Kepler, Prometheus, we were looking to use Cilium as the CNI as well, which we managed to as well. And then whichever components we need for the pipeline. So maybe in the future the GitOps Actions runner, Actions runner as well then.
We have another access issue related to Flux, which is that Flux requires a token, which is a GitHub personal access token, and that has read and write access to repos, but we shouldn't use our own individual tokens for this, but I don't know of any tokens provided by the CNCF, like a bot or something like that we could use. So I'm not sure if they could create one, or we should ask if they have one. Maybe they do. I have no idea.
Yeah, bot account, or at the organization level, you can create org level tokens that are scoped to specific things.
Right, yeah. We should ask that from the CNCF. Request.
Yeah, I agree, because also, for example, in my place of work, we also use a dedicated bot account for specifically this case to avoid personal tokens on the employees. So that could be nice if we could either create one or use the one from CNCF.
Yeah. Where's a place to request that, Leo?
I would first open up an issue in the
Where?
repository, and then we can ping some people from the CNCF.
Okay,
And
sounds
probably
good.
also open up a service desk, but there should be like an issue for this first.
So in our own repo is okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
And also the organization CNCF tags, the GitHub org is very new, so most of these things is not yet in place. So something that they will probably create at some point, but if we have like the demand now, we can just ask them and they will do it.
Yeah. Would anyone like to take this on in the spirit of sharing the workload? I mean, I could do it, but if someone would like to volunteer, that would be really nice.
I can do it but if there is someone else who would like, please. But if not, I can do it as well.
I'm also happy to have a look at it as well, and if that'd be useful, because I think it'll help with the GitOps part to have that in place. And yeah, I'd like to figure out, what the process is, to understand the process as well.
Yeah, I guess there's three of us.
We can buddy up, as Leo suggested.
Yeah, or Matea, that would be super. That would be nice if you want to join. We can pair with you. We can talk in the channel that we have.
Yeah, I'm always happy to buddy up. It's more fun. So so let's do it if you're up for it.
Nice.
Yes, yeah, I'm happy to join that as well, or if you two want to look at it as well, whichever works best.
Yeah, better to have to post in the Green Reviews channel, and we can go from there. Awesome. So that's the access part of using Flex. That's the blocker at the moment, but we're also discussing how to do the repository structure. There's a few different ways of doing that. Like we can have apps with production and development. In this case, there was a good comment from Leo about like we don't have it's not exactly a development and production environment. It's more of a we have development, and which is a manual setup, and we have production, which is the automated setup. So maybe we can rename the environments to that. Another way of structuring the repo is like this, with clusters, production, development, or infrastructure, etc. If anyone has strong feelings about this, you're welcome to share your thoughts here in this issue, or share those thoughts with us now. Yep, Russ.
Yes, yeah, I think having infrastructure around clusters is good, and that's what I kind of did so far with the open tofu stuff. I think it's nice having that separation. Yeah, I'm also not sure about production and development. I'd say we have sort of two categories. We have the things that we just need to have running in the cluster, like Prometheus, maybe like Kepler as well. And then we have the projects, like Falco and the synthetic load. And I would keep those separate, for now. And then maybe as we move to the pipeline, some of those parts would then be installed by the pipeline rather than being installed by Flux. So I think it'd be good to have two types of workload, but yeah, I think development and production doesn't quite fit so nice, so we need to try and find a better name in there. But yes, I can also have a think. Maybe we can use this issue if anyone has a proposal here for better naming. We can maybe put that in.
Yeah, I agree with splitting the cluster provisioning and the application provisioning. Russ?
Sorry, I forgot to put my hand down, sorry.
So we have some action items. And yeah, you already have the structure, actually, so that's really great. Is there any other point that we should cover in this issue?
I think there's the kind of the directory structure as we figure it out, and also how we integrate the bot account, how we handle the authentication there. But I think probably those are the main two parts. And then we can figure out how we bootstrap Flux. But I think yeah, probably that like having all the access set up like the bot account will be helpful, and then we can iterate on the directory structure.
Yeah, for bootstrapping Flux, this is the fastest way.
Yes, yeah, and we should be able to run that in the user data in the OpenTofu code when we create the node.
Yeah.
So at the moment they're just kind of placeholders for that. So it's really the K3S and the Flux part, the parts that need to be fully implemented.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just some really basic to-dos and fine.
Right, let's get token unblocked and then we can do that. Leo's asking if you need help on this issue.
I think what Tobacco was wanting to work on the K3S part. He just has exams at the moment, so he couldn't make the call today. But I was hoping that I could pair with him on this because he expressed interest to work on this part.
Oh, that's great. Perfect. And for the secrets, you can ping Leo or me in the meantime, and we can add those anytime.
Yes, good, great. And it's just the the AWS parts we would need to add, if that's a really good help. Yeah, Nikki, maybe we can pair on that when we're ready to add the secrets.
Awesome. So we are going to unblock the access parts. Yeah, you can message me anytime. All right. I'm wondering. Ro is here. Do you want to
Hello.
introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, why not? So my name is Ro, and I came here by invitation of Nikki. She told me that I might be able to help with some K6 related questions. I've been working in K6 for the last 6 months, so hopefully I can, I don't know, help a bit with any question, or I don't know, bring ideas, whatever you throw at me. Feel free to.
I don't know if we've prepared any questions specifically, but I did ask Ro to have a look at the workload and the benchmark test that we have outlined for Falco, and I was wondering if you have any thoughts.
The question is for me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
or
I
anyone.
can maybe if you want, I can very quickly try to explain what I got from the document, and then you correct me, and then I don't know, we kind of roll from there. Will that work?
That sounds good.
Cool. So if I understood correctly, your idea for this project is to have some infrastructure which you can spin up quickly from CI/CD. So you create a cluster, you deploy something, in this case Falco. You deploy also a demo application for Falco to work as a requirement, and then you want to fire up K6 to the application to check how much resources Falco is using, and you are going to measure that with Kepler, which will give you estimates about emissions and power usage and whatnot. This is more or less the idea. Did I get that right?
I think so. So we would have Falco watch Falco and the demo workload on the same node.
Mm-hmm.
We would need K6 to hit the endpoints of the demo workload
Mm-hmm.
to create the kernel event rate at a certain rate, which is 200K to 500K per second. And then exactly, we have Kepler measuring the energy consumption of Falco doing so.
So this is something that I don't think I have the full context about the kernel event rate. I just by the name I can guess what this is, but if you can bring some more context, that will be helpful for me.
I'm also new to the kernel event rate part, but I believe the Falco maintainers can help us with that part.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also on the K6, are we looking at it needing to take that metric in, or are we just solely looking at it to kind of manage the load generation?
I think it would be for the load generation only. Is it possible to use K6 to take in metrics, as you said?
Yeah. What do you mean by taking the metric in? Like, I'm not sure I picked that up.
Yeah, it's not exactly it doesn't really do the metrics collection, but like it does, like when you're doing a load, it does create metrics on like your latencies and stuff like that. And I just wanted to check and clarify on that, because I wasn't sure if you were asking about the kernel events row in terms of like how K6 would use that for the load generation, or what?
No, I was asking more in terms of how, like, where does this amount of kernel events come from, right? What is causing them, or this is like what are they?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so my understanding is the kernel events they are just kind of naturally generated in the application workload, and
Mhm.
Falco is hooking into those with eBPF and processing those. So that's
Okay.
my understanding of where that's coming from.
Okay, so then K6 will do magic, will generate some load in the application, and as a natural consequence of that, that will generate kernel events. And the thing that I think I understand is that what you are interested in is how much energy Falco uses per kernel event, sort of on average, right? So you will use these kernel events as a way to contextualize the energy usage. Is this correct?
That sounds about right. Does anybody else have a more definitive answer?
Sounds
Could you, yeah. Sorry, Brian.
Sorry, I was just speaking up. Yes, it sounds correct from my understanding as well.
Cool. Then yeah, I think this sounds pretty solid to me. So how can K6 help with this? Is this like do you have any particular strategy or any particular concern? I saw this question, and actually I think this is a good question. What Imma asked here, like where is K6 going to run? Have you thought about this, or do you want me to throw some ideas about this? What are your thoughts? Because my main concern, or as someone reading this, I will ask is, you're running everything on the same cluster, then it is potentially going to be hard to know which is using the, like Kepler will disambiguate, right? But well, either way, I think you get what I'm trying to explain very poorly.
Yeah, longer term, we'll need the load generation to be outside of the cluster that the application under test is on. That's going to come up when we get to like testing things like Istio and stuff, because if the load is coming from within the cluster, we're not going to accurately test that path. But the question then is like, do we run that from a separate cluster or node on the Equinix bare metal, or do we run them in the cloud somewhere, like the K6 SaaS cloud, or stand up an EC2 instance or something like that? And I know from my personal experience that there are the K6 cloud, it scales pretty well, but that there's some limitations around that. So do you know, are we in the territory where it would be most economical to look at running our own runners, or would the K6 cloud be an option? Is that something that would be available to us?
So I do not have hard numbers right now in my mind about what are the scale limits or even pricing for the cloud. It is not really my area, but I think this should be easy to estimate. I think K6 Cloud should be able to handle like unless we are talking very unreasonable scales or a very unreasonable scale of testing. K6 Cloud should probably help, but maybe in the interest of keeping things simple, maybe it is easier to just run it inside of the cluster. I think Imma suggested here using the K6 operator. I think that is a way, but I would in fact go simpler if possible. And K6 can be run. It has a container image, so you can just create a very a simple Kubernetes job, like put the script on a config map that most likely won't even need to change, and just create a K6 job and tell, okay, run this. And if you are at this point in time not extremely concerned about the resources usage of K6 itself disrupting or tainting your measurement, I think that probably will be my first approach. If at some point that does not scale or it is too complicated, then I mean, yeah, why not? Let's look at the cloud. But I think that will be the simplest first step. Just create a run K6 as a Kubernetes job.
So run it as a job in the same cluster as the application, and we can use node taints and stuff to have it run on a separate node from Falco.
If
Cool.
you have a separate node, then yes, exactly. Just put a selector in there and or a taint or whatever, and yeah, call it a day. It is pretty simple.
Okay. Now we need code to drive the K6 load, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So when I used this before for work, we had this huge library of JavaScript and TypeScript to generate all the load. Are there samples of that, or does any of that exist for any sort of benchmark or open projects or stuff that we could use as a starting point? Or are there other resources available to kind of help jumpstart that if we're using that?
So I think the documentation has simple examples for most of the things, like I don't know, making a few queries to an application. So the docs will be kind of the first place where I will search. And we also have a demo application in K6/Grafana. It is called Quick Pizza. Let me link this to you. And this is like I believe a simpler version of probably a simpler version of the demo application that you are using that I don't know what will be, but I think one of the microservices samples probably. Well, it doesn't matter a lot. The thing is that this in this demo application there should be a folder called K6, and inside in the repo itself, and in the K6 folder there is a lot of K6 examples as well. So if you go, for example, to the list of folders in the repo, maybe I can just link this for you. Yeah, there is this folder called K6. And in there, you can see that there are a couple of examples. I believe the foundations should be the first. Yeah, that's correct. Should be like the most basic examples. And then you have how to make a simple test, how to add the stages, life cycle checks, I don't know, custom metrics. So I think will be a good useful starter pack if you want.
Awesome. Yeah. That looks super helpful. And So one disadvantage of running like this is getting access to the stats on that, and I didn't have much experience with that, but I do know from looking at tuning your load generation that is super important, even if those aren't our primary metrics. So is there an easy way to export those somewhere that for review so we can see how the load generator is functioning?
Yeah, so I know that there are quite a lot of K6 output extensions. Let me check that out. I know that K6 can output to quite a lot of places, and I believe Prometheus will be for sure be one of them. So I do not know if it is like a remote write thing or an endpoint thing. I will need to take a look at that.
Okay,
So that's
but we could send it to Prometheus and then generate whatever graphs we wanted.
yeah, I'm pretty sure
see
that
that.
must be supported one way or another.
Okay.
And another option, like maybe more crude, but could help in the meantime, is to output in some kind of JSON and get that from the logs with log key or something similar. But yeah, I don't have that in the top of my head, but I believe Prometheus will almost certainly be an option to export. I can maybe take a look at that. Because for sure it must be one of the export options available.
Could I so we need an issue for this. Would anyone like to open an issue that summarizes the discussion that we just had, and then we can continue from there?
I can probably open that. It looks like Leo volunteered me.
You've been volunteered.
Yeah, Brian, I think we're running Prometheus anyway on the cluster for other things, so the footprint of Prometheus isn't really an issue.
Got it.
Yeah, so are we wanting to everything around K6 that we discussed in one issue, or is there a particular aspect, or are these a series of issues?
In the meantime, I just linked in the Zoom chat. There is an add-on that will output to Prometheus Remote Write. So yeah, it is labeled experimental, but I believe that should be not a huge problem. Like K6 has a lot of experimental things, and they are used. I think it is. We treat them like as a public preview thing, in a way that we may make breaking changes to this, but I believe many people use this, so I think it shouldn't be a problem. And I believe I think I didn't ask this, but I believe the load will most be HTTP request, right? Because K6 can do many things, but I was kind of assuming that you want to stress something that is HTTP.
Yeah,
Either networking or read write on disk, I think. If I remember correctly. I think we have this documented somewhere.
yeah, I think the benchmark tests were a lot of them were looking at HTTP. I know the main one was the microservices demo.
Then it shouldn't be any problem. I think HTTP is by far the most popular way of using K6. There should be plenty of examples and things to get inspiration from.
In general, all the other K6 load generations revolve around various network protocols. Correct, right? Not an arbitrary load tool.
Yeah, I think it is meant to test. Yeah, it's perhaps even higher than, I wouldn't say on the network layer, I would say perhaps even higher, like in the protocol application layer, like HTTP, gRPC, these kind of things. But I don't think K6 is well suited to run somewhere and, I don't know, write files to disk, for example, or I don't know, stress the CPU. I think there are better suited tools for that. K6 is meant to interface with applications directly, so API or web pages or whatnot.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was just clarifying because it looks like
Yes.
some of the alternatives we were looking at look like they're more direct, like operating system level stress things.
Yeah, that is not the scope of K6. I think there are pretty well known and pretty nice tools. FIO, you have StressNG, you have, like, I don't know, a plethora of them. But for stressing applications, I think K6 is a good fit. You will you should be able to check, but it is pretty much post this JSON with 100 threads every 0.5 seconds, and it will do that for you. And you can also chain things, like, I don't know how sophisticated the demo application is, but if you have to do some kind of login flow to obtain a token to post something, all that is pretty easy to script in K6.
We are almost at time, so I think we should take this to a issue and continue the conversation there. And then eventually the goal would be to document this in the design doc. It's good to discuss, but then we also have to document it, and then do it once we have everything else in place. So thank you all very much for attending today. We have a few action items. We'll meet again in 2 weeks from now, and otherwise continue in the channel and on GitHub. And thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Have a nice day.
Bye.